Good morning, everyone. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining in to our webinar. Please introduce myself. My name is Nikos Christakis from Multipoint. I'm based in Athens and responsible for Greece and Cyprus. So let's make a quick round of our panelists. Jonathan, my colleague.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Jonathan. I'm present in Multipoint, and I'm first of all would like to thank you all for participating in this webinar. I'm sure that after this session, we'll all understand what are the benefits and the advantages of the technology, the product, and the service. And of course, I would like to thank George and Daniel from OneLogin that are going to demonstrate and present the product itself. Please, George, your words.
Excellent. Thanks for the introduction, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. As Jonathan pointed out, I work closely with him and Nikos at Multipoint as a partner of theirs, and I'll be providing you with an overview of the high-level challenges that OneLogin is solving and the solutions that we offer to do that today before handing over to Daniel. And I'm the channel sales manager here, so I act as the first point of contact for our partners and also work closely with them, with their customers. Daniel?
Sorry, I had trouble with the unmute button here. Good morning.
That's all right.
Daniel Gordon is my name. I'm a solution engineer at OneLogin, and I'll run a live demo of our product for you today. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Are you guys, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So today's webinar is part of our CyberStrong webinar series, and today our partner OneLogin will discuss and demo how to easily use SSO to elevate your CyberStrong strategy. So let's move on to the agenda, what we will see today. So a short intro on our CyberStrong webinars. George and Daniel will take it from there to present OneLogin solutions, followed up by a demo, and we will end up with a Q&A session. Housekeeping, all attendees are on mute, but please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. We'll try to answer them during or at the end of the session. The entire session should last around 6 minutes. Okay, all right. So the landscape has changed dramatically over the last few months. You have been forced to enable almost all of your colleagues to work from home in a matter of weeks. But functionality needs to be accompanied by security because bad actors do not rest. Cyber attacks have skyrocketed and they are trying to take advantage of the situation, looking for weak spots. We read daily reports about this. So here at Multipoint, we thought about this and how we could help and inform how you could tackle these challenges. And we have invited our partner vendors to participate in a series of webinars, which we call CyberStrong. Okay, so I see some new participants. So here's a short intro about Multipoint. Multipoint is a valued distributor of cybersecurity, auditing, and monitoring solutions, among others, in the Mediterranean region. From world-leading software vendors such, of course, OneLogin, Tenable, Varonis, Qualys, Netrix, and many others. Multipoint was founded in 2009, and from our headquarters in Israel and offices in Greece, our team of engineers cover the region on-site and remotely. Good. So now I'm going to pass it on to George. George, are you ready? I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nikos. Let me just share out my screen here. All right, everyone should be able to see that now. I'm just going to share out the presentation.
It's okay, yeah, we are seeing it.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. I'm going to try and skip through this pretty quickly so that you have a good understanding of the OneLogin solution and the challenges we're solving and how we do that while allowing enough time for Daniel to show you a solid presentation of the product as well. So I won't spend too long on this slide in particular, but I just want to give you a really quick introduction to OneLogin as a company. We were founded back in 2010, so we've been around a decade or so now. Raised 175 million funding, most recently in January of last year. And we're headquartered in San Francisco, but we have an office in London where I'm based, our EMEA headquarters serving a wider kind of Europe, Middle Eastern territory. is in Dublin, and we have another couple of offices in the US as well. At this point, we're a really mature company, very strong collection of customer references. And if you have any other questions on the company at any point, of course, we'd be happy to support you with that. So in terms of the challenges that OneLogin is solving, there are two key challenges, and they're both associated with the adoption of cloud-based applications. The first is how you can efficiently manage and securely manage which users have access to which applications. And the second is how you can secure access to those applications once you've granted users access. And there's a few key pieces of functionality that we'll discuss on today's session that tie closely to these challenges. The first is user lifecycle management, and the second, related to securing access, is a single sign-on two-factor authentication. We'll speak about all of that. But to take a step back for a second and give you some context as to how OneLogin came about to solving these challenges and how they've been approached historically. Like in the past, they weren't quite as acute in what we'll call this perimeter-based world that you can see here. In this scenario, an organization's applications roll on their network, on-premise typically, and users could be managed centrally from Active Directory. So if you had a new starter, for example, on Monday morning, you would add them to Active Directory with the relevant attributes, and that would assign them a security policy, would assign them access to their applications, access to their computers. So managing these users was fairly straightforward. You had a single place from which you could do that, and it was quite efficient for IT. As users moved within the organization, you could adjust their attributes in Active Directory. That would then adjust their access to applications. And again, when they were leaving the organization, you could suspend their Active Directory account and they'd lose access to those apps. So it was efficient, and there wasn't a lot of gaps in there in terms of users kind of having access to apps they shouldn't have, or lingering access to apps after they leave the organization. Now, in terms of securing access to those applications, that second challenge we spoke about, that could be approached using a perimeter-based security model. So organizations could use a firewall, which effectively provided them with an internal trusted network, which protected them from any external threats. And that was really effective because in order to breach that, you would have to have physical access to the building, or at least the network tunneled in somehow. And while you were there on the network, of course, IT and IT security had physical visibility of who was there and who had access to their data. And it was also a streamlined end user experience, because although users had to be on the network, once they were there and not authenticated on the domain, they could easily access their apps. It was a seamless end user experience. But over the past couple of decades, we've seen a significant and increasing adoption in cloud-based applications, which has complicated these matters slightly. And of course, cloud apps provide a huge number of benefits for organizations, and particularly at the moment in the current climate, as we're seeing these this forced transition to remote working, cloud applications have enabled organizations to provide their employees with applications which mean they can work effectively at home and collaborate with their colleagues effectively from home, whether that's things like Teams, Office 365, Zoom, WebEx, Slack, any of these applications. But you know, this adoption of cloud applications isn't new. We've seen this with Dropbox, Box, AWS, Salesforce, whatever it might be. This is a transition that we've already been going through, and OneLogin's already been solving these challenges for customers. But what we've seen in the last few weeks, the last month and a half or 2 months, is an acceleration in this trend. And as we go back to work, following these distancing measures, and things return to something more closely resembling normal, it'll be interesting to see how things go. But many people are considering that we won't go back to work exactly how it was. We'll have more remote employees will have more flexible working because it's been proven we can do it and we have the applications to support it. So we've seen this trend, and for all of their benefits in terms of allowing employees to be as productive as possible from wherever they are, whatever machine they're using, and provide them with a great end user experience, there are significant challenges. Like firstly, how do we now manage access to all these applications? Because it's not as simple now as just adding users in Active Directory. Now if we have 5 cloud-based applications, yes, we've got to add them in Active Directory, we've got to add them in these 5 cloud apps as well. And then as users move throughout the organization, you've got to manually remove them from Dropbox, Zoom, Slack, Office 365, and then you've got to add them to their new applications they need and adjust their privilege and their license accordingly. And then when someone leaves the organization, not only do we have to know all these applications that they're using and be aware of them, we also have to cut access to them in a timely manner so they can no longer access them. And it's really hard to do that if you don't have a centralized place from which you can manage those users. Doing it manually leaves a lot of room for error, and it's also very slow for IT and holds them up. And on the access piece, like now, before you had one strong directory password for users to use. Now they're having to set up passwords for all these individual apps. And we know the more passwords in an organization, the more holes, the more potential weaknesses, because users will typically simplify those passwords so they can remember them, or they'll duplicate them. And that might be a password they use across all their personal apps and their corporate apps, which leaves you really at risk. And then of course, the beauty of cloud apps is that users could use them from anywhere now and at any time on any device. The nightmare for IT teams is how you verify who that user is. Now that you don't have physical visibility of them, they don't have to physically be on your network. How are you verifying the user is? How are you verifying they're not just somebody who's got hold of one of your legitimate users' passwords? So those are the challenges we're solving. We're providing organizations with a central place from which you can manage those users efficiently and securing that access with single sign-on, two-factor authentication. Of course, these things are really important. We know that the vast majority of breaches involve stolen or weak credentials. We know that manual access management policies are slow, ineffective, and costly. So that's why we're solving these challenges. And OneLogin is enabling organizations like yours to adopt and use any technology that they'd like to, all these modern apps, efficiently and securely. And essentially how we do that is OneLogin sits in between any of your existing user stores and directories. And on the other side here, you see the cloud applications we're integrating with. So we have connectors to these directories, which could be Active Directory, and we'll use that as the example today in the next couple of minutes. But it could be an HR service, as you can see some of the logos here. It could be another LDAP directory. And for the cloud apps, using the open authentication standards that are available, we're eliminating the passwords for those and instead using OneLogin as the identity provider so that users will access those apps via OneLogin. And you can see here on the user management piece where we're tackling this first challenge of how do you efficiently manage users centrally, we're building mappings between existing directory and OneLogin based on the user's attributes. And we're mapping them across to roles in OneLogin. So we use the role-based access control system. And that dictates which users have access to which apps. So now when you have a new user, all you have to do is add them an AD with their relevant attributes. Let's say they're a full-time employee and they're mapped across to that role in OneLogin. That gives them access to Office 365 and Zoom. And then they also have an account manager attribute. So they fall in the sales role and they get access to Salesforce and DocuSign. And of course, as a user changes role, you adjust those attributes. They lose access to some apps. They're provisioned in other apps. When they leave the organization, all you have to do now is suspend them in Active Directory, and they lose access to OneLogin and therefore all their apps. And for the end users, we provide them with one strong password. In this case, it would be their directory password if we're integrating AD. And they'll use those credentials to log into their OneLogin portal in their web browser, unless they're already authenticated to mail, in which case they're not required to re-authenticate. But if they're in their web browser, they'll log in there with the directory credentials, and they have access to all these applications they need. And it's a really seamless experience, and it means they have one strong password, and they can be as productive as possible. And to verify who that user is, we're just going to use two-factor authentication. And we have a OneLogin solution for this. You can see here with our mobile application with push notifications. It can also be used to generate one-time passcodes. We also support SMS or phone callbacks. And that's a really seamless experience. We also support other services like Duo Security or RSA or YubiKey in this case. Yubico is a partner of ours, and they're a partner of Multipoints. And we have a joint solution where you can actually leverage YubiKeys as an authentication option for everyone in your organization or select users. And they support USB, USB-C, Lightning connectors, so you plug them into your device, and they provide two-factor authentication, either one-time passcodes, users can tap those, or they support passwordless as well. So not adding another factor authentication, actually with WebAuthn, which we can tell you about later if you have any questions on it, so standard, we can use that to support passwordless, and users can tap those to authenticate without even needing a password. And we support this MFA, not just for cloud applications we've spoken about today. Also, we have Radius interface, for example, so we can use that to support VPNs, Wi-Fi, and other appliances. But all these applications you see here, we can cover. All right, I hope that was a useful introduction to the high-level challenges we're solving and how we do that. Essentially, to recap, we're providing organizations the ability to centrally manage their users and their access to applications in a way that they can't do now with these multiple separate siloed cloud apps, and providing single sign-on. So we have one strong password, or eliminating all those weak passwords, and we're verifying the user identity with two-factor to ensure that access is secure. All right, thanks everyone. I'll speak to you again soon. Daniel, I will stop sharing so that you can share yours.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
All right, wonderful. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Also hearing you loud and clear.
Wonderful. Okay. Before I even log into the system and show you around, a few things to mention about the OneLogin platform here at the login page. I mean, of course, as you can see, you can brand your instance. So you can have your own background picture, your logo on here, choose the colors for the highlights and buttons. But what's even more important than just making it pretty here at the login page is provide different kinds of self-help service for the end user. So you can link FAQs, or with this help button here, you can issue a contact form to support, but also we provide a self-service password reset. With this, a user can reset their own password without bugging the help desk. So all I need to do here is provide my username, and the system will check the security policy that applies to me as a user, and based on that policy, will now decide which are the factors that it's going to offer me to choose from how I can reset my password. So in this example here, I'm getting an email with a certain code that I can use to reset my password. But OneLogin also supports, how do you say, sorry, lacking the word here. It supports multiple authentication factors. So you could have a list to choose from and say, well, I don't have access to my email anymore, so I want an SMS to my phone, or I want to use my YubiKey to reset my password. All these integrations are pre-integrated in the platform. You can simply add them with a click of the mouse in the admin UI, and then decide which group of users should have which factors available to perform this password reset. And also later on, if you want to configure multi-factor authentication, which should be the factors that they can use for this. Also, a user can unlock their account using the secure mechanism of password reset. So if a user has locked themselves out, for instance, by providing 5 wrong passwords, they can simply go and say, I'm going to reset my password. This is going to unlock their account, and they can go back to work immediately. So you save a lot on help desk tickets, but also people are a lot more productive because they don't have to wait for the help desk. They can simply reset the password themselves and go back to work immediately. Also, this will work if you integrate with an existing directory like Active Directory or LDAP. We will simply reset the password in the original directory It's transparent for the end user, and all they need to know are their original credentials from Active Directory or LDAP, and they use those to log into OneLogin as well. So I'm going to do this here. And as you can see, the first thing, sorry about that. Okay, there you go. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first thing that I see when I sign in is the SSO portal. Even if I sign in as an admin, I'm taking to the single sign-on portal that displays all the applications that are assigned to me as a user that I should be able to use. OneLogin will cut out the noise by not even displaying any applications that aren't assigned to me that I shouldn't have access to. And now if I want to use an application, I simply click on the link, I get directed to the application, I get signed in automatically, and I can start working. There's one more way for me as a user to access applications, and that is the browser extension in OneLogin. Everybody knows what it's like. Sometimes you have 20 browser tabs open. You can't even see the SSO portal anymore. You don't want to go search for it. Simply click on the browser extension. It will display the exact same list of applications that are available in the SSO portal. If it's a really long list, you simply start typing and the list will narrow down to anything that matches. And now when you click on this, the same magic happens. You get directed to the application, you get signed in, and you can start working. All right, with this, I'm going to take you to the admin overview and show you just how we integrate with existing infrastructure, how we onboard new users, new applications, and also new MFA factors. To begin with, let's have a look at directories. As I mentioned, OneLogin can integrate with existing directories such as Active Directory or LDAP, but also other directories like Google or sources of truth like HR systems. We've got standard connectors to systems like Bamboo HR, Workday, Altipro, namely, a few more. And we can also perform a CSV upload. We can automate JSON or CSV upload via our APIs. So we can work with pretty much any source of truth. So you don't have to change the way you're managing users today. OneLogin will simply be an extension of how you work today to enable people to work from home office, to easier onboard new users and applications, and assign roles and applications depending on the responsibilities of your users and what are the tools that they need to do their job in the organization. You can also create and manage users in OneLogin directly, and you can have a mix and match situation as well. So you can have users in Active Directory, sync them over to OneLogin, and also have users that you create and manage in OneLogin directly. For instance, external users who typically don't live in your Active Directory. So those will be managed in OneLogin directly, while at the same time you sync your internal users from AD. Now, when I look at a user in OneLogin, OneLogin will simply create a homogeneous layer of authentication across your entire user base. So now I can apply the same filters, the same rules, the same policies, etc., to any user, regardless of whether that's a OneLogin user or an Active Directory user. When I look at the user details, I see all my basic details like name, email address, who's my manager, what's my department, my job title. I can see directory details, which is more technical information like SAM account name, user principal name, what's my group membership in Active Directory. So you get this 360-degree view of your user with all the information that you need to make decisions. What am I going to do with this user? What am I going to assign to this user? If this isn't enough information, you can also create custom fields in OneLogin, and you can map these fields to existing attributes in your original directories. So with this, you can expand the user schema in OneLogin to match any use case that you want to address with OneLogin. So now we've got our user base on the platform, and I'm going to show you an actual live flow of onboarding a user just a little later. But when we've got our users and we have their attributes, we have all the information that we need to now automate onboarding, the very basis for this onboarding process are mappings in OneLogin. Mappings are basically if-then constructs. You've got a condition or multiple conditions, and if those conditions are true, you perform a certain action on that user. And now as condition, you can use any attribute in OneLogin, including the custom attributes. So like I said, you can use literally any information you have about this user as a basis for making these decisions. Now, what am I going to assign to this user? And you can assign a lot of stuff, roles or groups. George has already mentioned the role-based access model that we offer. Groups are used to assign security policies, but you can do a lot of other stuff like setting a status or state, saying I'm going to license or unlicense a user, activate, deactivate, suspend them. I can set other attributes. I can work with attribute macros here. So the possibilities are endless. But the most important items on the list are, in this case, roles and groups, because with these we can assign applications and security policies, which are the very basis of what people should have when they log into OneLogin and use the platform for single sign-on. So I'm going to focus on these. I'm going to cut this very short. Roles in OneLogin basically just group apps together. So you would look at your organization, how it's set up, what different responsibilities users in your organization have and what tools they need to do their job. And then based on that, you would create the roles in OneLogin. So in this example here, I've simply done it by department because I would assume that anybody who's in sales will use very different tools than someone who works in engineering. So when you've got your roles set up, you've got your groups, which will assign security policies. Now you can start onboarding users. You assign these roles, you assign security policies, and the security policy, as it says, as the name says, hang on a second, let me pick the right one here. I'm actually missing a policy. But let's use this one. The user policy will define all the security settings that apply for the user when they log into and use the platform. So you can define what kind of login flow do I want? Do I want to go standard, where user simply provides password or ID, password, and maybe MFA if prompted? Do I want a brute force defense, where users have to provide MFA before they can even enter the password? Or especially for mobile devices, very convenient, do I want a passwordless flow that's based on certificates and multi-factor authentication prompt? I can choose all my password settings, of course, like length, complexity. I can apply password restrictions, like I could say your last name cannot be part of your password. We can also enforce password blacklists. We can enforce a compromised credentials check, which will check the user credentials against huge databases of known breached credentials. And if someone has reused credentials on the internet and they've been breached, we will not allow this password to be used for that user. So protecting users and your organization from reusing known breached credentials. And then, of course, in the MFA settings, you can choose what are the MFA factors that we want to support. Since you can have multiple security policies or apply different security policies to different subsets of users, here you can decide which users will have what kind of MFA factors offered to them to choose from. Like I said, OneLogin supports redundant MFA factors. So users can register, for instance, their YubiKey, their phone for a mobile app that works with push notifications, which is OneLogin Protect. We can perform a voice call, an automated voice call, or send an SMS to your phone. We also support authenticators that are based on TOTP, like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. There's a lot we can do here, and adding an MFA factor to a security policy is extremely easy. So for instance, since we are using YubiKey here as an example, and Multipoint are a YubiKey partner, let's have a look at how I add YubiKey as authentication factor. I simply click on New Auth Factor, and YubiKey is a pre-integrated MFA factor in OneLogin. So all I need to do is say, click on Choose here, give it any name I like. This is the name that's actually going to appear for the end user when they see the list of MFA factors to choose from. Click Save. And now you can see YubiKey has been registered as an available MFA factor on the platform. Now I simply go back to my policies, and let's say I want to onboard home office users. So I simply go into the home office user policy that I've created, especially for home office users, go into the MFA settings, and add YubiKey for this subset of users. And that's how easy it is to onboard an additional MFA factor in OneLogin. So now I've added YubiKey as an MFA factor, onboarded a new MFA factor. So we've got our users on the platform. We've learned how mappings will enable us to automate onboarding of users and assign security policies and applications. Now let's have a look at how easy is it to onboard an application, because that's the next important task, right? OneLogin offers a catalog of over 6,000 existing pre-integrated connectors today, and supports all common authentication protocols like OpenID Connect, OAuth, SAML, of course, form-based authentication, but we also, or LDAP, Radius, but we also offer an additional module called OneLogin Access that supports legacy on-prem applications that only support HTTP headers, but not the modern authentication protocols. So we can actually integrate across the entire landscape, on-prem and cloud, and offer a transparent SSO portal for the end user, where the end user simply needs to choose the application and doesn't even know, is this a cloud application or is it on-prem? All they need to know is, I want to use this application. Here, the list that you can see here are integrations that I've already picked from the catalog and onboarded in my OneLogin demo instance. So with the example of Office 365 here, all you need to do is pick it from the catalog, go into configuration mode of this connector, say which is the domain that I want to integrate with, and authenticate against the API in Office 365. Choose which parameters you want to hand over when you automatically provision a user into O365. And then choose which are the roles in OneLogin that now should have access to this application, right? So I would say my home office users, this is just the role that I use for my demo flows. So I'm adding this or this one, and just pick the roles that you know are, or that group the users together that will need access to this application, and you're done. Configuring a connector like this typically takes anywhere between half an hour and an hour if you know what you're doing. So this is really quick and easy. Even if you have an application that we don't have a pre-integrated connector for today, we have connector templates that make it extremely easy for you to create your own custom connectors into applications that are SAML enabled or OpenID Connect enabled. And literally, like within half a day, you can onboard a new application entirely, including pushing it out to the users or subsets of users that should be able to use this application. All right, so now we've got all the basics we need. We've got users on the platform, we've got their security policies assigned, we've got the applications that we've onboarded that we want to assign to users, and we've got an automated flow of what should happen with the user depending on who they are, what their responsibilities are in the organization. So let's have a look at an actual live flow of onboarding a user. I have an integration here with an Active Directory that's running in a virtual machine on my Mac. And I've prepared a user here, Nurit. When I look in OneLogin, she does not exist here yet. Okay, no Nurit here. So I go back to my Active Directory, and now I'm going to grab her user and move it to an OU that is configured to actually sync with OneLogin. Very important to note here is OneLogin is the only vendor out there who can offer actual real-time sync with Active Directory. You will find competitors who claim that they can do that too, but it's actually not true because they need to wait for Active Directory to sync internally before they sync over that information. OneLogin actually does it immediately. And so when I look for Nurit now here she is. So she's synced over immediately. This is great for onboarding, of course, but it might be absolutely critical for offboarding. So please keep this in mind. When you offboard a user, you might have a very good reason for that. So of course, you want to be able to revoke access immediately and not within a few hours until Active Directory has synced over. Now I've made Nurit an account manager in sales in my organization. And based on her role and her department, now I've assigned a certain policy. So I'm saying she's getting a home office users policy, which includes multi-factor authentication, because for added security, and salespeople travel a lot. So I want to make sure that she always gets prompted for multi-factor authentication. And when I look at her list of applications, she's been assigned everything that she needs based on her role in the organization. And the ones that support provisioning, she's already been provisioned into. This one has failed. Let's look why. No. We'll need to check. Also, you can configure admin approval. So in this case here, where you look at ServiceNow, this says pending. So ServiceNow is configured to require admin approval before the user actually gets provisioned into the application. So now here, an admin would need to go and say, yes, I approve this provisioning. And now she gets provisioned into ServiceNow. And everything is happening as it's supposed to. Now I've onboarded Nurit. So the first time that she sits at her home office and wants to access OneLogin, she simply goes and logs in with her known Active Directory credentials. But now since she's been assigned a policy that requests multi-factor authentication, she gets prompted to please register her favorite MFA factor. She gets a list of factors that are available to her. We've just onboarded YubiKey, as you saw, so this is available to her as well. She could use OneLogin Protect, which is our mobile app that works with push notifications. It's very easy to onboard, very easy to register for the user, and very convenient to use. But since we're talking about YubiKey too today, I'm going to use my YubiKey. All I need to do here is select YubiKey now, press the button on my YubiKey, and it's registered. That's all I need to do as the end user. Now my YubiKey is registered here. I'm signed in, and I can start working immediately. So Nurit here can say, I want to use Salesforce. Click on the button. She's already been provisioned into Salesforce, so her user exists, and she can start working immediately. Now, we all know things change. People join the company, people leave the company, people move to a different department. So now, if I grab Nurit here, I take her out of sales, and I put her in HR, for instance. Click apply. And now when I look at OneLogin at her list of applications, the information syncs over immediately. So now when I refresh the page here, you will see how the list of applications immediately changes. She's been changed in ServiceNow as well. This is pending because ServiceNow still is configured for admin approval. So let's approve this. She's still got Office 365, but she doesn't have Salesforce, for instance. When I look at Office 365, and also this is very important, when we provision the user, not only can we make this yes or no decision, do I want to assign Office 365 to this user, but I can also make more granular decisions. And for instance, here, I've put Nurit into the group Human Resources in O365. So with this, you can actually fully automate onboarding of users, because not only can you assign applications, but you can actually assign entitlements inside those applications and say, well, this should be her group, her access level, her permission set, her role in this application. Now, like I said, she doesn't have Salesforce anymore, but when I look over here, she's still got a Salesforce session open. Now, if Nurit clicks anywhere, she will simply get a notification she's been logged out and she cannot log back in anymore. So even if she goes back to OneLogin where she hasn't refreshed the page yet, if she clicks on Salesforce, she'll simply get a notification. Nope, this is an invalid login now. You can't log in anymore. All right. And of course, all this information is tracked in an event stream in OneLogin. So all user action, admin action, API interaction, everything is logged here in this event stream. Of course, you can search and filter this stream, but you can also run reports across this data. But not only that, further, you can integrate OneLogin very easily with SIEM tools. We've got ready-to-go integrations with Splunk and Sumo Logic, with ready-to-go dashboards and everything. But we can integrate with any SIEM tool that will accept event data in JSON format, and we will simply stream this event data to your SIEM tool, or also a CASB tool that you might want to integrate with, and then have those tools do what they do best, CASB tools that make decisions like, you know, I'm seeing critical behavior here. I want to block a user. I want to enforce step-up authentication, or a SIEM tool that will run dashboards on all kinds of reports and all kinds of user behavior, app access, etc. So these are the most important aspects that I wanted to show today. Of course, there's a lot more that OneLogin can do. But since today we're focusing on how can we integrate with other MFA factors like YubiKey, and how easy will it be with OneLogin to expand your IT infrastructure and onboard users in their home offices, onboard additional applications, onboard MFA factors. These are the most important aspects that I wanted to show today. And if you're interested, of course, I'm more than happy to run an extended demo and show a few things more.
Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We have a question here from one of our participants. Is related to Nurit changing in the Active Directory. Once she was delivered to HR and she is not yet, she's not supposed to be available to Salesforce. There is a question whether she can approach directly to Salesforce and overcome the OneLogin.
Very good question. Thank you for that. That's a very important question. Here in the connector for Salesforce, you can configure a decision in the provisioning tab, and you can say what should happen if a user gets deleted in OneLogin and if a user gets suspended in OneLogin. And in that case, the user will get suspended in Salesforce as well. So I'm actually suspending this user in Salesforce. So if she goes to Salesforce directly, Salesforce will tell her, no, you are suspended. You cannot log in. And this is true for any application that supports provisioning. We can do this with any fully integrated application.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
Okay, we can proceed.
Then I'm going to stop sharing, and you guys can take
It looks like there's another question there.
Yeah.
In the chat window. How can we reconcile the users between different sources? For example, LDAP and Active Directory / custom policies for reconciliation. Can we have one-way or two-way reconciliation options between OneLogin and directory server? So I suppose the question is, how can you consolidate and provide a central place from which you can manage multiple directories, and could OneLogin be used as that source of truth and the information written back to the directory server, Daniel?
Yes, yes, and yes. But of course, always the correct answer is depends what exactly you want to do and how your environment is set up. So first question, what do you do if you have multiple directories? You can integrate multiple directories, even multiple different directories with OneLogin. So if there's a merger or acquisition, and all of a sudden you have 2 Active Directories and 1 LDAP, we can simply sync users from all these directories. And like I said at the beginning, we will simply create this one large user base and create a homogeneous layer of authentication across the entire user base. Now, even if a user exists in multiple directories, we actually have a customer who's in that position because they're in aerospace and defense, and they've got projects running where one project must not even know that the other one exists. So they've got users in all these different Active Directories, but it's actually the same user, and they need to consolidate the information from all these different directories that don't know anything about each other in one user, in one login. And you can do that with advanced directory attribute mappings in OneLogin, where you simply say, which is the leading directory? So this is the source of truth for that user, and which are supporting directories that will then sync additional information over for that user. But we can also go the other way. So here you can see in these attribute mappings, right now everything is synced over from Active Directory to OneLogin, but I can simply click on this arrow, and now this field will be synced the other way. So of course, this is something that you shouldn't do willy-nilly, just click around and decide, oh, this is what I want to do today. You do need a proper process first and make a decision. This is how we are going to run the business. This is how we're going to run, how to manage our users. But then OneLogin will enable that with directory provisioning as well as syncing users from directories.
Great, thanks, Sam. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we support that, but it's important to have the necessary policies in place of that organization. Yes. Yeah, thank you. There's another question here. All it says is Linux ? So I suppose the question is, do we support the Linux operating system in any form?
It's kind of a broad question. So Linux as systems where you want to sign in users, or Linux as the operating system where you want to run OneLogin, because OneLogin is a fully hosted cloud service, so there are no hardware or OS requirements because we are running it in the cloud. Now, if you want to authenticate users into Linux systems, we can do that with a, let's call it extended configuration. So short answer is yes, we can do it, but it does require quite a bit of configuration.
Great, thanks, Daniel. I would just like to quickly clarify an answer from earlier as well on whether a user can go to Salesforce or any other application directly. And the answer is, once you've integrated OneLogin and it becomes that identity source for that application, but the beauty is users can only access those applications via OneLogin, which means that as soon as you disable the users or suspend them when they leave your organization, they can no longer access the applications, which from a security perspective is great. And it also means that you get some powerful data and reporting capabilities, because you can report on exactly who is accessing which applications and when, and which applications are being used, and so on and so forth. And if a user tries to access Salesforce directly, they don't have a password to begin with. They're not given a password for that application. and they have to go via, they'll be redirected to OneLogin to authenticate. All right. There aren't any other questions in the chat facility, so I think we're good.
Yep.
Yes, well, we can proceed.
Okay.
Excellent.
So thank you very much for attending. I don't know if you have any more questions. Please send us an email or reach out. We can see each situation differently for your requirements. And of course, we can arrange with OneLogin a trial so we can test out in your special environment. Is there anything else from the rest of the team?
No, I'd just say, just to piggyback on your closing remarks there, we've spoken kind of generally speaking around the wider challenges that OneLogin solves and how we do that. And Daniel showed you how we do that. But of course, each organization is unique, and the way that you approach the roles and the mappings and the groups will be unique to your organization depending on your employees' working habits and which applications they need access to, and your security policies and what you're comfortable with. So as an appropriate next step, if you'd like to discuss the challenges that you're having specifically at your organization, how we can help that in more detail, we'd be pleased to discuss that. And of course, we've only touched on the key functionality OneLogin offers as well. So there are a number of other pieces of functionality we could discuss, of course. And we'd be happy to do a one-to-one call to learn more about your business and advise specifically on how OneLogin might be able to help you with that, whether that's in the form of a discussion, demo, and as Nikos pointed out, we also offer 30-day free trials of the service as well. So please do contact Multipoint if you're interested in that, in any of those options, and we'd be happy to help you. But otherwise, on behalf of Daniel and I at OneLogin, it's been great speaking with you. I hope it's been useful. I think the demo was great, and we'll hope to hear from you soon.
Yes, same here. Thank you very much for joining from Multipoint and OneLogin. I hope you have a great day and a great week. So I'm shutting down the webinar right now. Thank you once again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.